Hi people, Keith Surtees with you here. Okay, this is my seventh talk in the series for my YouTube channel. Um, this evening I have got, I'm furthering the discussion on what we can call the development of an in-school approach. But I also want to talk about the development of any seeker along their pathway um, and some of the things upon that pathway. I think we all meet similar circumstances on the spiritual pathway, and we all have similar doubts, and we all have many um, questions that are the same. We have many things which we have to deal with, which aren't always easy. And I think one of the most difficult things, of course, is to choose in a extremely competitive spiritual field what to follow, because I know that when I was in Bournemouth in the 1970s, there was a lot of stuff going on there. There was a lot of, excuse me, I need some coffee. There was a lot of different groups, and they all tried to grab you. And I remember, I think it was 1981, going to the Festival of Mind, Body and Spirit in London. And that was a time when the markets weren't so flooded with things as they are now, but even there, it was extremely strange because you couldn't just walk through. There was always someone, come here, have you tried this, etc., etc. So it was very difficult just to walk through, which is what I wanted to do. And I know a lot of other people would like to actually just view their spiritual perspectives and their spiritual pathway in this way, to gently to look, to contemplate, to think, and to feel out what choices. I mean, when you go to something like the Festival of Mind, Body, and Spirit, and you have everything there. You have the human potential stuff, things like the Silver Method with wonderful mind meditation, synchronized brain activity stuff, and then you have the more religious people like the Hare Krishna movement and Dianetics and other such groups. Um, and way back then in 81, I think there was over 2,000 different people trying to catch your attention when you went to the Festival of Mind, Body and Spirit. And I know since then that the world has multiplied and like wonderful garden full of flowers, there's so much to choose from, and much of it is beautiful, and much of it is extremely useful to you. But if we look at all of this from what I introduced in my last talk, which is integral and integrated type of spiritual development, then we have to think about what fits our particular needs at this time, or feel. Yeah, maybe not so much think, because when I look back, my best choices have been made from a deep intuitive level, and using the mind and intuition in intelligent ways is one of the best tools that the seeker has. Um, the intuition is difficult to describe on talks. It's or even in books. It's something that I think you can develop in small groups with people. I would suggest even groups of anything over 10 it's more difficult. Fiona and myself, when we work, always try to keep groups to 10 or below, because this is very personal. Of course, there is a pressure sometimes when more people want to attend to have maybe 15, 20 in a group. But I think it's nice to split those groups and focus in a more personal way on each person that's in that group. And that's the way that I have found for myself, and I think Fiona would back me up on this. I have found much growth and much learning when there is a possibility of interacting more deeply with the teacher who is taking you into that particular new subject that you're studying. So yeah, there's many things out there, and really what I'm saying is kind of a follow-on from my last talk here, which is that the intuition and your own self-worth and your own, what I'm going to call spiritual confidence, your own spiritual confidence is extremely important. Um, I've done some work on these talks so far to try and separate the old religiousness from true spirituality, and I also suggest, and I strongly stick by my point of view because I think it's a very educated and point of view, and a point of view backed up by looking into these things for around 30 years, more actually, so I'm getting older. But to go back to the subject, there's a lot out there, but when you work with the integration and understanding of the first step, the different parts of your personality. So with a integrated spiritual development scheme, you look at the different levels, and the first level really, if you're going to start right at the bottom of the rung, isn't even the intuition and your choices. It's to get the body and the health correct, to work with the vitality of the body. Personally, I was extremely drawn to the martial arts, and I've done different forms of karate, and I did some Wing Chun for 4 or 5 years with different teachers. And Wing Chun is a Chinese martial art. But whilst I was doing the Wing Chun in Bournemouth and also in Blackpool in the north, and Worthing in the south, and the teachers, very good teachers, they were top Wing Chun instructors in the UK. But I met a lot of their friends from Hong Kong, and some of these were extremely brilliant Qigong teachers, and that really has always interested me. I loved to do the martial arts when I was young. I loved the feel of the energy flowing through one's body, but I also got into the slow and the meditative type movements of Qigong. So one's physical side cannot be ignored. I personally myself in the past said to people, "Oh, we don't have to worry about the physical side so much because we've dealt with that in earlier lives." I made this statement. I remember making this statement, but I was wrong. And I was wrong because I was going through a slower physical period, more in my emotions and mentality at the time, and this reflected some of the things I said in the teaching. And this is a point that I want to make over and over again. A teacher, no matter how committed they are to the work, still is at the personal stage themselves of development, and is going through personal unfolding of their spirituality, which means that everything they say is colored by the stage they're at and the connections. So on the pathway, I've been very connected often to the energy of love, wisdom, and my teachings have been really, maybe for 10 or 15 years, really focused on that. And in the last 10 years, I've felt that isn't enough, and I've felt the need to get in touch with the willpower, and I've had visions of the martial arts and what I absolutely truly believe to be past lives in Japan, in Korea, China, all including the martial arts. I had these visions of Japan, particularly when I was 13, 14 years old. So there are processes that we go through on the pathway. Later I will talk about the law of correspondence, which means as above, so below, as within, so without, which basically is a tremendous way of looking at how you work with life by understanding all the levels, including how nature works. Let us keep the theme here. So the physical level is vitality. I did not want to be a medium. When I went to the Spiritualist Church in Monmouth, I had read one book, I think it was Harry Edwards, the great healer. I read one book about healing, and I wanted to be a healer. I prayed to God to make me a healer. And I have walked the healing path, and I have done much work with healing, and healing is a great love of mine. But sometimes bigger powers than ourselves, they take the pathway from us, and they they push us in different ways. So I developed the healing, I developed the Qigong and the martial arts, and I was interested in yoga, and I began at 14, 15 years old practicing in the garden. I think my mother and family thought I was absolutely crazy, but it didn't stop me. But I'd come away from this about 15 years ago and got involved with um, extremely practical spirituality, you can say. And I began to go much more into the psychology, which is the level of the personality dealing with the mind and emotions. And I neglected the physical side. Then a few things started to go wrong. I could feel I put on weight. I felt slow and lethargic. Living in the forest of Sweden, I was still walking in the forest, but I didn't have the vitality that I would have liked. I went walking a few times in the north of Sweden and was exhausted. I was 40, 45 years old. And now I'm 55 years old in September. And my vitality is 3 times what it was then. So what have I done? Well, firstly, I recognize that the vitality and the health of the body cannot be denied on the spiritual path. It is part of an integrated, integral way of being spiritual. I was very impressed many, many years ago with the works of the great Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, and I studied those works, and there's much there about vitality, prana, and how to work with the systems of prana within you, or the different channels of prana within you. And it's very similar to the meridian lines that we taught in Qigong and acupressure and other systems. So this vitality, this what we can call vital self, this energy self, cannot be denied. And if you do deny this level of yourself, then your health is going to get worse and worse. So I began to realize that I had to change things, and from moving to Spain, there was a tremendous amount of physical work I had to do, and I realized how much I was enjoying this. I'm a mountain walker. I love walking hills and mountains, and when I can get out in them, I do. So I had this experience too. Within 6 months, I had lost around 13 kilos, and I'm still losing weight and enjoying it. I'm not trying to lose weight, I'm just enjoying the physicalness. I've been training in Qigong with a very dear friend of mine, Inga Bunes, and she is a good Qigong teacher, and she has been working with just helping me to understand some subtleties of Qigong. And although I've done Qigong for many years, what she taught me was more effective than I'd been taught in the past, or rather, she taught me in ways which I could understand. So, this is very important. So I came back to the understanding that we must work with the physical side of the self. I'll let you choose that. As I said before, there's a whole lot of things out there. The one thing I will say to you is that you just need to do the energy work. You don't have to get involved with a load of highly stylized philosophy, whether it's Chinese or Indian or Tantric or whatever. What you really do need is a teacher who has a good flow of energy, who knows how to open your energy, knows how to work with you uh, in meditation, in energy work, and also can have enough insight, enough clairvoyance, and enough intuition so that they can push you through the blocks and they can help you release the blocks. One of the biggest blocks is laziness. It's true. I've fallen into this myself. Laziness is a kind of it's called tamasic energy in India, and it basically means the slowness of the physical energies, leading towards stillness and death. Yes, death. Slowness, stillness, death. And there's 3 energies we talk about, and like the Chinese medicine, where we talk about yin and yang, or the 5 elements of Chinese medicine, and finding the balance within these. Too much physical energy can lead to difficulties of fire burning out in the system, and too much stillness of the body leads to this very deep earth like cavern energy just sitting in the dark, and tends to lead to a stilling of all energies, from the etheric energy or life energy to the physical energies that we know of, including energies such as hormones and how they work in the brain, and also the nervous energy, etc. So this physical side is extremely important to find, to feel, to understand, and to work with. So there's many things out there. The thing about the yin and yang thing about this is it's not good just doing physical things. It's not about running so many kilometers every day. It's not about what can I say? Building big muscles. It's not about having the fastest kick or punch, or being the best tennis player. Those things are all wonderful if you're at that age where you can do those things. But it's about the inner energy exercises, feeling the flow of energy as you do when you do good qigong, work with a good teacher, or yoga, or tai chi, or some of the shamanic practitioners that have very stylized and very particular practices to work with their inner energy. Okay. So we take that physical level, and if we see to that, and we get this awful word, discipline. We get a discipline with this, and we become far more focused, organized, and scheduled in the way we work out with the physical energy, both the physical energy and the inner energy that we use in qigong and yoga. You see both sides, the yin and yang of it. When you get that right, not only do you feel tremendously more vitalistic and alive, but your body looks better, your mind is sharper, you can work longer hours if you wish to work, and you can play longer hours if you wish to. But you find a new joy of life, and it comes into also the wisdom of your body begins to speak to you, and you start to want to drink more fruit juices and eat more vegetables, and I have a thing about beans of all kinds, beans and lentils, and I love this. Personally, I'm not a vegetarian, but in all honesty, I'm not that bothered about meat either. Now and again, I like some, but I love to have fruit and vegetables. I love to have brown rice. I love to have wholemeal bread, and I love the feel of certain energies. You know, you go to the supermarket and you feel, you know, oh, those bananas, and then other bananas, yeah, there's a vitality there. You begin to contact the growing conditions and the inner life force within fruit and vegetables. And then in your physical practice, for example, doing qigong or just still sitting meditation, as I love to, on top of a mountain or forest or by the sea, you begin to understand not only the physical aspect of what you're doing, but you begin to feel the connectedness with the universal force that we can think of as, particularly as Mother Earth as it moves through nature, and Mother Earth is a living entity. And we can also feel it as the cosmic force, as light, as the power of the sun. For without the light of the sun, Mother Earth could not make one piece of life. Not at least life that we know it. So you see, here again, we have that wonderful sign of the yin and yang. Mother, father energies, working together. So, okay, that was a deliberate stop, by the way. So, um, as you become more intuitive, then you can begin to choose more precisely what you will put your energy into and where you don't want to put your energy. You might walk into a place like I have many times, and on the surface, what I see with my eyes and what my mind recognizes is one thing, but what my deepest intuition and deep level body energy is saying is no. And sometimes because the mind has very particular ways of seeing things, and I will give you an example of what I mean here. I've been told of an enlightened guru, an Englishman, in Bournemouth, and eventually I got to see this man. He, I, I really can't explain this, but his auric field was right outside the building. It was enormous, and I felt this as I was walking through Boscombe Park toward the place. He didn't know I was coming. He'd probably heard about me through another friend, Douglas Rodenhurst, who had told him about me and my spiritual interest. Anyway, I knocked on the door, and the door opened. I nodded to this old, rather round-looking guy, old, 65 years old, I think. And I said, "Hello, I'm Keith," and he looked at me. "Hello, dear boy. I've been waiting for you." Anyway, there started a wonderful relationship with him and his new woman, who became his wife while I knew her. And he's the guru. I've been told he's the guru. And I'd read all kinds of stuff by then. I was 19 when I met him, nearly 20. And I've been reading about this. And the gurus were, they were like walking on water. They was always peaceful. They were never angry. These superhuman figures that had been painted by Westerners explaining what the Eastern guru was supposed to be. So I think on the third or fourth time I went round to their house and was asking questions. And Clarice was making some coffee in the kitchen, and I said to John, tell me something that I should always remember and keep in mind. Something higher spiritual knowledge that will help me through this pathway of seeking, or something like that, I said. And he looked at me and said, remember this, dear boy, people are shits. Now I don't know if, looking back on time, if it was deliberately testing me to see how I would react to that. But anyway, about a half an hour later, because of my highly religious personality at the time, who expected a religious man to be a guru, I left, and I actually stayed away, even though one part of me was pulling me towards John and Gladys, his wife. I stayed away for around 6 months. Because I thought, no, he's a false guru. How can a teacher say this? I realize now exactly what he was talking about. That what Eckhart Tolle calls the pain body in people, what we can call the shadow. It's a piece of shit. Don't believe me? Just look at the world. But he wasn't saying, when John defined people, he was talking about the truth of what we see out there in the world. Often people behave in the most terrible, disgusting, violent, sneaky ways. And this is the pain body acting out. And you just have to look at the world to see this. So you see, try not to be too religious. So what I'm getting at here is it wasn't my intuition that kept me away from John and Gladys. It was my mind. It was my ideas of what a spiritual teacher should be. My inner self also understood John. as a lot of true spiritual teachers, truly awakened ones are, which is they are cosmic jokers. They joke. It's not a sick joke. It's not a cruel joke. But they laugh at our small ego understandings, and they laugh at our need to have everything neatly packaged and neatly laid out on the table and made black and white. It must be this, but it can't be that. This is the beginner on the pathway. They are extremely religious, and everything must be in certain little packages and laid out in certain ways. And that's the way I was at that age. But my soul was bigger than that. My soul fought me and eventually got me back to see John Salon. And I'm glad, because he only lived a few more years after me. And I learned a lot. And I also learned that sometimes the people with the most knowledge do not want to be publicized. And I tried to publicize his work, some handwritten books, etc. And he said to me, no. And I asked him, why? You have brilliant teaching, much better than many that I've read. And he said, well, dear boy, I can say what I want now. And I don't have to be bored and say it all the way that some publisher wants me to say it. I am a free spiritual teacher. And I said to him, but there's so many more you can reach. I reach them. I reach them with my mind and my love. Okay, so that's the end of the story. But basically, your intuition is one thing, and the concepts in your mind are another thing. Okay, so find your pathway by using this intuition in the best way you can. So once we have that base of the physical level, we move into the psychological level. And the psychological level is really to know the tricks of the ego. What the Hindus often say is the mind is a monkey mind. It's always jumping about like a monkey, jumping from one idea to another idea. It cannot stay focused. And this is where there's a saying, everyone can meditate. Yeah, maybe. You can all sit there. But to find the deep levels of meditation takes an energy of practice, a discipline of practice, and also understanding of the joy that meditation brings, so that deep discipline actually isn't really hard, because you know the benefits from each meditation. You know the beauty of meditation. You know the enlightened thoughts and the new ideas and the new processes that your mind. My back's getting a bit stiff there, sitting forward all the time. Okay, so your mind begins to understand the benefits of the spiritual practice. Once this happens, there is an inflow from soul and spirit levels of tremendous ideas. And then you go through many years, sometimes a whole lifetime, when the spiritual force is trying to move into you and the personality is defending itself against it. So our personalities are part of the process, part of the time on the pathway, are our biggest problem. And people, I've heard it said, love your personality. Yeah, fine. But here again, you can love your personality as much as you want. This is my experience in both psychology and as a spiritual teacher. But it still will keep its ground. It will accept and take in the love, but it will not change its structure. And here we have this idea of love being both a yin quality, soft, and a yang. And then we need Zen stick. You have to kick your own ass, as the Americans would say. Love yourself as much as you want. And if you have this space cadet type personality that's always going away from the truth of life, you can love that as much as you want. But you're going to have to give it something that's disciplined. You're going to have to break its hold over you, because it's the sick, sweet type of love which is actually blocking your life. So here, and I can't go into this much because this is a very deep psychological understanding, and it's more than we can talk about on a video like this. But basically, you have to do some deep focused, intelligent and precise work with your own personality. So that, yes, I need this to look at what the heck is going on. Yes, we're moving now. Okay. So, the personality and the work with the personality and different levels of personality is a tremendously deep work that's actually too much scope here to deal with. I can tell you that I've worked with it with others and myself for over 30 years using tremendously precise psychological techniques, and to think you can avoid these and transcend them, well, you can't. You just can't. You will get lost. You'll get lost in all of the energies of what we call the astral world, which is the dream world, the mind projections of others, what I talked about yesterday, the energy fields which are created from the collective consciousness and the collective mind energies. Well, they will toss you around and throw you around because you haven't got a personality that has a mind of its own yet. You haven't earned it. So this is why when we're doing the level of the personality, we need to develop an intelligent mind. We need to understand and have a questioning mind. We need to know when to say yes and when to say no. We need precise cognitive tools to help us to understand what life is. Now we're talking, because this is so often ignored. And when we ignore this, we get all those spiritual casualties. And there are a lot, where people do tremendous, what they call kundalini work, with raising the kundalini. And they work with certain gurus, and they blow the system open. And their personality is totally unable to cope with this. Suicides occur, and also crazy things happening with the body because the different levels have not been built and worked with in the proper way. So that's the personality work. And the next level after that, or coming alongside it, is the development of understanding the soul and the soul's journey. And that's another whole lot of teaching in itself. And after that is the work with the spirit itself, direct spiritual contact. And these last three can be, to a certain extent, work together. And that is the last step there is understanding spirit. And I'm not talking about Auntie Jane standing here and telling me I'm a naughty boy or a good boy. Not that level of spirit, although they do exist. Most of the time, you don't want to talk to those people. They didn't do much in this life, and they're not doing much in the next one. That's kind of earthbound spirit. No, we're talking about spirit at a much higher level. We're talking about what we can call the archetypal spiritual energies. And here we have true angels, and here we have true masters, and if you want to call them masters, teachers, and many other energies. And beyond that, we have the oneness. And there, finally, nothing can be said about the oneness, other than it exists, and it is the final destination of all of us, and that we can live in this world. We can be a bodhisattva, which means that we have attained enlightenment, and yet we come back here to teach or to live in a helpful, compassionate way for others. Okay, so this is a quick synopsis of the pathway and how we need to use intuition and how we need to know how our mind and personality works. Later in some talks, I will talk about boundaries, the yes, the no thing. I will talk about collective energy fields and how to resist them when you need to. How not to go with the flow of a group or family or society or even nation because it's not your pathway. And how to go with something in a good way when your intuition is telling you to be part of that group because you have a certain work to do. So I'm about to end this talk now, I just want to tell you that I have found there is a pathway, a work pathway. I believe everyone has a pathway. I believe in pathway work, finding one's path, and this is mature spirituality, to understand one's path and to find one's path. This is also, one could say, finding one's life mission, to know one's life mission, and this is the highest purpose of all of us. Okay, a lot of stuff here to think about, and I think we've said enough for one talk. I have lots of things coming in, you see, on my intuition, and if I bring those into this talk, well, it's going to be 2 hours long. We can't do that. So I'm going to finish here, and I will be back in a few days' time. I think this is talk 7. I'll have to check it up, but I think so. I hope you've enjoyed this. I wish you all well. I hope you can hear your intuition. I hope you can begin to trust your spiritual self. I hope you can begin to believe in yourself. Okay. Thank you for listening. Take care of you. Bye bye now.